Comrades and friends, I'm not going to read out my speech, since first of all, many things have been said already, and the keynote speech was held by our president, which included many of the elements which are also in my paper. And also, I don't want to give a, let's say, after the important intervention contributions by the Czech host, I don't want to repeat and to give a lecture on the history, although the first part of my speech was referring to that, and it may be useful for people to read it also who are not here today, later after the event. Allow me first of all to salute and congratulate our friends from the civic organization of Soldiers Against War for taking up and maintaining, because it was a challenge, this initiative to hold this important gathering in Prague, exactly 75 years after the invasion and occupation of Czechoslovakia. And it is with pride and honor to co-organize this event today as World Peace Council with you here in Prague to express our appreciation to the peace-loving people of Czechoslovakia and to the peoples, to Czechs and Slovaks, and our respect for the fact that they keep the memory and principles high despite the multiple attacks this movement has suffered after the restoration of capitalism in 1991, as well as recently also in the course of the preparation of this meeting. We are proud for one more reason to be here in Prague, again today, 65 years ago, where 65 years ago, from April 20 to 26, as correctly also pointed out by Felipe, the first World Congress of the World Committee of Partisans for Peace took place in Paris and Prague in a double session, which 1 year later led to the official founding of the World Peace Council in Warsaw. We are glad and proud to organize this World Peace Council an event here in Prague for maybe after 25 years again. World Peace Council is coming back, and it is symbolical also for two more reasons. Prague served in the international anti-imperialist struggle of the peoples for more than one occasion, for more than one purpose. Prague was the venue of the first World Festival of Youth and Students in 1947. It was actually the fundament for the foundation of the World Peace Council. It was the head office of the International Union of Students, and you should know, people who don't know, that you learn it now, that Josef Skala, who is the moderator, translator, scholar, brilliant mastermind of the organization of this event, was the president of this very influential and very important international organization, the International Union of Students, which was based here. He was in the 80s. On behalf of the Socialist Youth Union of Czechoslovakia, the youth of the glorious Communist Party of Czechoslovakia. I will skip the part of the history. Allow me also to add that we are paying back, in inverted commas, a debt which we owe to the peoples of Czechoslovakia, to the peoples in the socialist countries in Europe, by this visit and this event today in Prague. Because in the good times, all these peoples and nations and countries were showing and expressing their solidarity to all the peoples in need, to all the people, the poor and the oppressed in the world, by serving certain ideals and principles of internationalism and solidarity. And it is important that we are here also sitting on the presidium, apart from our leader and host, Jerzy Bureš, a soldier who was serving the purpose of peace and fighting against imperialism until today. We are sitting also with the representative of the Czech peace movement, newly formed 4 or 5 years ago, represented here by Milan Krajča, who was for a critical time some years ago the chairman of the Communist Youth Union of Czech Republic, the famous KSM, which was intimidated and put, under ban, made illegal by political and court authorities, and but still they survived and they fought back. And Today, this young generation has initiated the Czech peace movement. Comrades and friends, it is important that the peace movement and the World Peace Council in particular reads and understands the historical facts and draws conclusions, lessons from the struggles of today out of the historical developments. This country, the Czech Republic, along with Slovakia and other ex-socialist countries in Europe, were pushed or pulled into NATO in 1999 with the promises to bring them into the EU, to paradise. Since the European Union was never a club of equals, neither a charity organization, the goal was to expand the domination of West European and transatlantic monopolies towards the East, similar to what Hitler was doing with the vital space in the East, Lebensraum. Achieve cheap labor for the enterprises and new markets for their products. At the same time, to encircle Russia and to compete with it and with other economies in their strive for bigger profits and global domination. In other words, after the restoration of capitalism in this and in other countries around, the German, French and other monopolies and multinational corporations took back what they had lost with the creation of the socialist states in Europe after the Second World War. It was never their concern for the peoples and nations, their human rights, as it is hypocritically stated by the European Union. It is always, and it was always, about hegemony of the monopolies and concrete profits, sometimes in competition and rivalry, but always hand in hand when it comes to confront the peoples and their just causes. Czechoslovakia and its peoples became victims of the German expansionism and Nazism before the Second World War broke out. So are today several other peoples and countries who are being threatened or even occupied by the US and its allies, by NATO and the European Union, which is being militarized more and more. The cases of Yugoslavia and the NATO aggression against its peoples in 1999, the creation of the NATO protectorate of the Serbian province of Kosovo was a precedent case in the chain of later aggressions under various pretexts and excuses, whether in Afghanistan and Iraq, who still are under foreign occupation, or the aggressions against Libya, the threats against the people of Syria, the colored revolutions in Georgia, or the bloody coup, recent coup these days in Ukraine. The list is unending if we consider the ongoing efforts of imperialist forces in many other regions and continents. Always the causes are the control of energy resources, of markets and of spheres of influence, the competition often between imperialist forces and centers for the bigger shares. Dear friends, today humanity is facing serious threats to peace and security, mainly triggered by the policies of the imperialist powers led by the USA in all corners of the world. Imperialism is becoming increasingly aggressive, threatening peace and sovereignty, and moving to reassign markets and redraw borders to plunder natural resources. The United States, NATO, the European Union, and other imperialist forces are seeking new instruments and pretexts for aggression. Among these are the so-called responsibility to protect, plans for democratization of the Middle East and other regions, heightened use of subversive actions and recruitment of mercenaries to carry out crimes against humanity, like it is visible for 3 years now in Syria and so on. This strategy includes blatant violation of international law and of the UN Charter, distortion of the UN to make it an instrument for aggression and massive manipulation of the media. I'm going to skip more parts, which you can follow in the written version, on the situation in the world, in the Middle East and in Asia. Allow me to go to the last part of my contribution to cut it short. We are going to publish whatever we will receive as World Peace Council in written and digital format. We are going to document it and to publish it anyway. Dear friends, the global peace movement and foremost the World Peace Council has to face and object these plans of the imperialist forces, whether it is in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria, Mali, Venezuela, today in Ukraine, to object these plans and the forces behind them. At the same time, we have to admit also our weaknesses. Probably the most important weakness is the lack of understanding of the nature of imperialism. There is a general tendency in the movement to look at these crimes and atrocities as consequences of either bad policy or incompetent leadership. This is why atrocities as consequences of, this is why we tend to blame sometimes, not we, but in the global peace movement, to blame the likes of Bush and Cheney for the invasion of Iraq, or Obama for the NATO attack on Libya, or Sarkozy, and the expansion of drone attacks on Pakistan, or other cases. This is a totally misguided approach, because it ties its hopes and efforts to changing the policy of the leadership, mostly through electoral process. This path has been tried over and over for decades, without any results. The fact of the matter is that imperialism is neither a result of neither a result of wrong policy, nor of bad leadership. Imperialism is the very essence of the present system of the global capitalism. And until the movement corns the grips with this undeniable fact, it will not be able to stop it. Understanding this is key to understanding the link between all issues that the movement is fighting for and developing an effective strategy for success. Preventing another catastrophic imperialist war depends upon the mass mobilization of the peace movement against the root causes of war and injustice throughout the world, which is the imperialist agenda for the 21st century in the world. On the positive side, we have to state that we are witnessing mass uprisings by the oppressed peoples of the world against this imperialist agenda. This is exactly why the global war on terror has been declared by the US administrations before. This strategy is to label any resistance to the imperialist agenda as a terrorist movement and to crush it by military force, while paralyzing the peace movement with the fear of being identified as a supporter of terrorists or of tyrants. But as we have seen, the real terrorists and tyrants are the imperialists themselves. What we need is a peace and justice movement that acts in a coordinated way, not just in response to the imperialist crimes, not just as a reactive force that only protests after the fact, but a peace movement that is proactive, that takes preventive measures rather than seeking remedies. Let us substitute imperialism's policy of preemptive military strikes with the peace movement's policy of preemptive peace strikes. Let us respond not just to wars and invasions after they happen, but to even the smallest preparations that are being made for wars and interventions before they happen. We need a preventive peace policy if we are to save humanity from total destruction. We need to confront the causes which lead to war and to eliminate these causes. Thank you very much. I hope it was not too long. I think we can have a second round discussion after everybody will have taken the floor for clarifications and the discussion on the draft communique. And we can also use the time tonight and tomorrow for exchanges bilateral and multilateral, for briefing on the activities of the World Peace Council which are on the way, regional meetings, conferences and activities which are in plan. So I think both Socorro and myself, we are at your disposition for anything.
Thanks a lot, Iraklis.